Eric Adams spent part of his day yesterday fighting for funds in Albany.
Yeah, he's at odds with Governor Kathy Hochul's proposed $227 billion state budget. And the mayor has about a month and a half to convince state lawmakers to ease the city's financial burden. So joining us this morning is political analyst Basil Smikle to explain how this budget battle could change the dynamics between Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul. So good morning, Basil. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Danny. It's good to be with you as always.
So Governor Hochul, Mayor Adams, they have a pretty good working relationship. In fact, the mayor always boasts about it. But there's a lot at stake in this budget, especially at a time when the city is strapped for cash, somewhat drained for cash, dealing with the migrant crisis. So how do you see this all playing out?
Well, you're right that the mayor sort of went up to Albany hat in hand. Some people derisively call it Tin Cup Day. But this is the kind of dynamic that plays out with every mayor and every state legislature in New York's history. Whereas the New York City mayor will go up to Albany and say, we are asked to bear so much of the financial burden for the state's economy, but we don't get enough money coming back to us. So that was really the main thrust yesterday. But there's some important key policy areas where the mayor made a very, very strong case for why New York hasn't been treated fairly.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. But Governor Hochul's budget wants the city to pony up $500 million annually to help the MTA get back on its feet. Now, the mayor has said, no, we're not doing that because we don't have the money. So when the governor was here, we had her on the morning news last week, Basil, and I thought I asked her, what are you going to do if you don't get the money? And she said, well, this is what budget negotiations are all about. And then she kind of slid in, we're giving the city $1 billion for the migrant crisis, so we got to work together here. What do you make of it all?
Well, the mayor's asking for a couple of billion more for the MTA specifically, and this is something that's very specific to COVID, right? That the city has, the MTA has lost ridership. There are all these reports that people aren't going, not as many people as some would like are going back to the office. So that's really changed the dynamic, plus just normal maintenance. And so, this battle between, the city and the state in terms of who's really in control of the MTA, we thought was settled before, but it never seems to be really settled.
Well, she brought that up.
Because it could, right, and it continues to be this situation where the city still has to maintain a significant burden of the cost for something that, for people coming into the city, not just people here who are trying to get around.
Right. Yeah. She made sort of point out, by the way, when we interviewed her, well, the city used to run the MTA. Used to.
Right.
Like the mayor said,
and if they don't, then the state needs to come up with the lion's share of those funds.
Yeah.
But we do not have an endless flow of cash, as the mayor said. Switching gears a little bit, he did strike a less combative tone, though, when he went to Albany this time around, especially when it comes to bail reform. So he's looking to reinstate some of the measures that were rolled back. But do you think he's facing kind of an uphill battle in Albany?
Oh, certainly. I'd say for years, you had state legislators working on bail reform. Anytime you chip away at it, they're going to take offense to that. Now, whether they should or should not is an important and separate question, but they're going to take offense to it because it's consistently getting attacked. What they would say is that bail reform is not responsible for the rise in crime or the inability to be able to solve this crime issue in New York City. There are many other factors. Bail reform should not be called out singularly for it. But the mayor, having been a state legislator, is saying there might be some tweaks that you can make. Let's just go back to the drawing board. This is where he and the governor do actually see eye to eye, which is an important sort of dynamic. But they're also facing some headwinds from a legislature that is generally viewed as being progressive and not necessarily interested in making more changes to something they fought so long for.
Right. It's tough to keep up because there seems to be flip-flopping on some of these key issues. Bail reform, it seems to be that they kind of shifted in this one direction. And then there's the charter school argument as well. Governor Hochul wants to lift the cap on charter schools. The mayor says that'll cost the city $1 billion and will force him to cut spending on essential services. Now, we've heard him talk about this, but I thought he was in favor of more charter schools in the past. So what's with the change of heart?
It's a very important nuance because last year, the state legislature had a bill that the governor signed to reduce class sizes. If you reduce class size, that means that you're just going to need more space for the students that are going to public schools and charter schools. Even though enrollment's going down, you're still going to need more spaces because you can only have a certain number of students in the class. So if you raise the cap on charter schools that often rely on using public school physical spaces, that means that you're just going to have to find more space for them.
Right.
And he's concerned that that's just going to cost way too much money.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't he more or less saying that he's not specifically against the idea, it's just that we can't afford it?
That's exactly right. He's supportive of charter schools. He's supportive of raising the cap. Question is, do we have the money to find the spaces for the classes that we need to make sure that they're under that class size cap?
I mean, I think you would agree, though, we've come a long way from Cuomo and de Blasio. Remember those epic battles, right? But do you think Hochul and Adams, their alliance is going to survive all these budget hearings?
So the interesting thing about a gubernatorial and mayoral alliance, you may see battles, but my view is governors always win. Folks have to remember, cities are creatures of the state legally. And so governors will always, if they use their power, will come in, can come in at any time. And as we say, Bigfoot, New York City. We saw that with Governor Cuomo and Bill de Blasio. Unclear whether or not Kathy Hochul is intending to use that same kind of power. There's some negative consequences if she does because, of the tenuous relationship she has with New York City voters, just because they don't know her that well. But we'll see if she uses that power. Hopefully they can work some kind of relationship.
Everything's hunky-dory until all of a sudden the money is not flowing where you need it to, until it's not. Exactly. Basil, always good to talk to you. Thanks for being here this morning.